welcome to the Substack. My name is Dean. That is Zev Shalev from narrative.org. We're talking about Easter. Why do I like Easter? I like Easter because it's the only holiday that says good things are coming. You know what I mean? Like Valentine's Day is like, good things are here if you know somebody.
What does it signify? What does
Well, I'll get to that
Easter signify?
Okay, I'll get to that in just a second.
So good things are coming, you know?
Yeah, I'm going to have an anti-religion rant here in a second, too, so you're going to have to bear with me.
I'm bearing.
Oh, you should. It's going to be a good one. So I don't like any specific holiday, because I think most holidays are meant to separate you from your money for egregious gift cards and presents in the middle of the day. Each holiday is a commerce day. You ever look at your calendar and it's like, it's national, give this person money so that you can impress someone day. It's just stupid. Easter's different. Now, I am very anti-religion, even though I grew up in the evangelical Christian church. Hi, everybody. It's a cult. Nice to see you. But I get the impression from people that are like me, that are agnostic, who are like, Easter comes around. It's like you're starting to get out of hibernation. You know what I mean? It's like one of those things where you're like, I've been inside a lot for the last several months. The tulips are starting to grow. If I can take a page out of my mother's book, God bless Susan Blundell. She's the most wonderful woman in the world. And every spring, she would have a little more pep in her step. So spring to me is like this unraveling of everything that we had to hunker down for in the winter, specifically here in Canada. And, what was it, like 14, 15 degrees today? And we've had a really
something like that.
Shitty
Celsius,
winter.
by the way.
Yes, Celsius, by the way, folks. I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit. It's got to be 65, which felt
somewhere
luxurious in this beautiful city of Toronto where I live, this massive mega city full of beautiful people. And I felt happier today. And so when I realized it was a long weekend, and by the way, I'm not doing a Substack tomorrow. I'm not doing a FiveStack tomorrow. I'm not doing that.
No, it's Easter. You got to respect Easter.
Yeah, you need
Good Friday.
It's really Good Friday, with the exception for everyone other than Jesus. It is. It's a terrible
He's
Friday
dead.
for
He
him.
is dead.
It's like an awful.
I know. That's what I was going to say.
Well, yeah, you and I both agree on that.
Yeah.
And sorry if we've got any born again people in the actual chat. As just a personal opinion, I think it's a load. But anyway, whatever. I grew up in it, and I'm an apostate, so I get it. So spring has nothing to do with church or rising from the dead or dying for people's sins. To me, spring is like, fuck you, winter. Fuck you.
Yeah, so this is the problem. Well, not the problem, but this is probably the problem of Canada, right? I mean, this is what people say about Canada. They love everything about Canada. And then there's but it's really cold.
It's really cold.
It's really cold for a long time, for like 8 months of the year. It's
like it hasn't been above 10. Hasn't been above 10 degrees, which is like, 56 to you. Beautiful people.
And it's like
we're in the
not
middle
enough
of April.
vitamin D and not enough anything, really. You can't be outside. You're stuck inside. It's horrible. It's horrible. So this is why, when the sun suddenly comes out and it's just bearably nice to go outside, everyone's like, oh, wow, this is so great. It's so great. But it's still not great. It's just like better than it was last month.
Relatively
but it is good.
Great. Yeah.
Relatively great.
Yeah.
This is the Canada problem. This is why people are like, yeah, they can have all those things, but it's still cold.
Well, and this is our competitive advantage. I'll tell you that right now. I'm like watching Trump talk today about how he still wants Mexico and Canada, and he's bad-mouthing us again because he's got nothing going on. He's had a fucking disastrous week, like just a disastrous week. The stock market is way down. He's been outed as exactly what we all knew he was. And there he is, bad-mouthing Canada today. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, we put up with some of the worst climate in the world here in Canada for 6 months at least, specifically the beautiful hardy people out west of Canada. And I thought to myself, my God, if they came here, if he decided to, send people here, there's no way they'll win. It's the same reason why Russia's getting their ass kicked in Ukraine. It's like, you don't understand those people. Exactly. You don't understand the terrain, the topography. You don't understand what it takes to live in this environment. You don't understand how hardy we are. You don't understand that we're okay with hanging out for like 6 months in our house so we can fit in a foxhole for a couple of weeks, no problem. Like it dawned on me today. It was like, as beautiful as this is and as regenerative as I feel with this beautiful sunlight shining down on my face. I went for a business meeting at the Keg today. It's a nice little kind of a chain steak restaurant. I was sitting on the patio, and I got the sun beaming down on my face.
wow.
Can
Yeah,
you
you
see
look
my
like got some
color? I
sun.
look bronze. I'm
Flushed,
very
yeah.
bronze today. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's no way, like, because we're just grateful for sunshine, and we don't complain when it's shit for like 6 months. Not one person. We're like, hey, how you doing? Hunger down? Yeah, you got it. All right, good. See you in 3 months. That's who we
So
are.
tough people, the Canadians, but also cold, very cold people, because it's just cold outside. We should get into the top 5 stories
All
of
right.
the day.
Oh, yeah,
before
we gotta do the
keep-
FiveStack.
because
Yeah,
I know
sorry
you're
about that.
having a luxurious, sunshiny day,
I am.
but a lot of us are still, worried about whether we're living in a free society, whether dictatorship is here. That's one of the comments we just saw on the chat over here, and I was thinking the same thing. Oh, it's like, are we actually at a totalitarian state yet, or are we still getting there? So I did this list, and it's going to be our number 5 story of the day. There's 10 of them, and I won't go through all 10, but
this is fun. Like 10 identifiers of what makes a state a totalitarian state.
what makes a state a totalitarian state. So I'm going to go run through these, and then I'm going to run through what I think is happening in each of these situations. And then I'm going to reveal to you exactly what Donald Trump and MAGA are trying to do at this very moment. And this is why it's so important. So the first thing I got here is that dissent is equated to violence. This is normally what happens in a totalitarian state. Now, of course, you can still protest as much as you want here in the United States, but protests against Tesla, for example, are called domestic terrorism. So we're starting to see this mislabeling happening, where things that used to be just like a protest are now like being a traitor or being a domestic terrorist. So a slight indication, perhaps, that is changing. But that is probably the only category where things haven't shifted quite dramatically. The second category is the media is controlled by the state. Theoretically, no. Theoretically, the United States right now has a wide variety of media sources, all independent. Journalists can say and do whatever they want. But of course, we know the reality of that isn't the case. There are legal cases right now against many media companies. The media is being bullied, and they're being bullied in order to be more compliant. So on that front, I think we're beginning to see something of what I'm calling the Trump test. So in each of these categories, there's a thing that he's doing in order to test his limits, to test the limits of how far they can push the American people. And I think one of the reasons that it's so important that everyone stands up, like Harvard is standing up at this very moment to Trump. I think it's really important that all these institutions, every individual, all of us stand up to what is going on in our society, because these, if the media capitulates, which they sort of have, but if they capitulate even further in all these lawsuits, guess what? There'll be no free media at all. Number 3 is the legal system is co-opted by the state. It isn't right now, but it sort of is, because Pam Bondi has been instructed to launch investigations into Trump opponents. We've got law firms that are being subjected to enormous lawsuits. So again, they're testing to see how society reacts. Will they actually charge all these people? Will they actually have these criminal lawsuits? And I'll give you one more, and then we can move on to some other things, and maybe we'll come back to the rest later.
No, I got to tag on to the end of this. I like it. I love this conversation.
Okay, so the power is used to quash dissent. This is the 4th thing. Well, technically not. Technically you can be out there being dissentful, I guess, and protest. But we heard Senator Murkowski say today that she's afraid of retaliation. This is why they're not standing up to Trump. Yeah. She said we're very afraid, which is the first, very honest comment I've heard from a senator in a while. Where are we? Number 5, the state police protect the regime, not the people. I mean, clearly, this is happening right now. Did you watch
Marjorie Taylor Greene's town hall the other day?
Exactly. And also, we had a major internal trading situation a few weeks ago where Donald Trump made $400 million. There is not an investigation, as far as we can tell, going on. And if there is, there's the retaliation they're planning there. Besides, Kash Patel, Dan Bongino, they're not going to be meting out any real justice. They're
just a couple of fucking losers, by the way.
Yeah,
Bongino and Patel. Like Patel's eyes don't even work. Like, I mean, and Bongino is just he's got Atchafori eye. One's looking at you, one's looking for you. You're not too sure like which one. You almost want him to tell. Like, if I met Kash Patel, I'd be like, hey, listen, dude, cool, great. You're the FBI director. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Where am I looking? Like, am I looking in the left or am I looking in the right? And then
looks terrified.
Yeah,
he looks terrified
all the time. Looks shocked. Looks like a sex doll, actually.
But
He does. He looks like a sex doll.
Oh, it's
Like
terrible,
one of those real dolls,
terrible
like a
image you just
shocked
gave
look
me.
on his face all the time.
Terrible image,
Like that,
but very funny.
Well, it's
I'm
Easter,
blushing.
Good Friday almost. There
I'm
you go.
blushing.
You have a sex
Right?
doll?
No, I do not have a sex doll. Do I look like a sex doll right now?
Nah,
Ooh, it's
kind
hot
of.
in
Yeah,
here.
a little bit. There you go.
I don't blush that easily. Yes, I do blush that easily.
You're welcome.
So
That means you must have a sex doll. Anyway,
I do
next
not have a sex.
portion.
1 second here while I take a drink. Cool,
Well, I'm
refreshing water.
serious. Like
It's the
Castiel
sun. It's the
looks
sun.
like
It's so hot today.
he looks like a South Asian sex doll. Like he always looks shocked every time I see him in a picture. He's like, huh?
You're gonna keep
he's
going
like,
there,
he's
right?
got that going on.
He's
got
good. You're
the
gonna keep
eyes.
doing that.
Yeah, yeah.
He
Anyway,
does. He
sorry,
does. He looks a little
stop.
like that. It looks like he's
Well, it's
been
exactly
surprised by
what he looks
something.
like. Yeah.
Been
He's
surprised by
surprised that
Dan
he's the
Bongino.
fucking FBI director. That's what he's surprised by. He's like, my God, I'm a lifetime grifter. I'm in charge of the FBI. This is the best.
Yeah, how did this happen? And number, where were we? 6, I think here is the rights contingent on compliance. So this is basically saying that, your fundamental rights like speech, assembly, and due process are not formally tied to political, or are formally tied to political compliance. That's what they're talking about. We don't have that yet, although due process is being tested at the border right now. We have lots of citizens that are being turned away from coming into the country or being intimidated. And of course, what's going on in El Salvador with these gulags, I mean, these due process is clearly being ignored for many of those citizens and for residents. So clearly we're on the path to there. Yet again, I think this is a test. It's a test by Donald Trump to see how far they can push all these ideas that they have. Mass conformity of beliefs and behaviors is demanded. Well, it's not really demanded, but it is beginning to feel like it's expected, right? I mean, these days you're getting a sense that,
Why do you think he's scaring everybody?
yeah, that you really have to be a certain way,
Yeah.
If you step out of line, you can't be too gay, too trans, too anything, they're going to start coming after you. Power concentrated in an elite inner ring. Well, I mean, that's just obvious when you look at Elon Musk and the billionaires and the oligarchs and the you name it. Organized violence against regime opponents is permitted is the number 10 thing. And I did think about the MTG thing you pointed out yesterday, where she was beating up and tasering her own constituents who disagreed with her. And then the final one is that propaganda targets regime enemies, happening on a daily basis. I mean, that propaganda is everywhere. So clearly we're not there yet. I mean, we haven't gone full steam into totalitarianism, but we are beginning to edge closer and closer. And all these things that they're doing, I think, are real tests. And I think this is one of the things in each of these categories. You can imagine how if you let them go, down the path that they're sort of starting on, the extreme of them is quite frightening. And it's quite frightening what they're doing now. But we have to stand up and stop each of these things that they're doing, because I think each of them is actually a test to see how far they can push the American people.
I think there's a macro explanation here too that kind of leans into the totalitarianism aspects that you kind of brought up, and appreciate the list. But there's really five different aspects to being a dictatorship. And those 5 different aspects are fundamentals of a dictatorship. Are characteristics that you can look at on a smaller scale. Instead of 10, there's 5 different characteristics of key characteristics of a dictatorship. Okay. And I was readying a blog post for this here on Substack, which, by the way, you can go and subscribe to my Substack, deanblundell.substack.com. It'll be there tomorrow. I'm working on it now. But a dictatorship, how is it characterized? And the 5 characteristics are this: the centralized power, number 1. Check. Got that one? Centralized power. He's trying to centralize power right now. That's what we're talking about. Taking power
trying.
from
He hasn't
Congress.
done it yet, but he's trying.
But I mean, the effort's there to centralize power. So check. He's trying to centralize power.
Check. Yes.
Suppression of dissent.
Check.
I think we're fucking there, right? I think we're right there.
Well, not yet. I mean, I think that there's still...
don't do the not yet stuff, because he's suing CBS.
Yes.
He's threatening to shut down media outlets. He's sending tens of thousands of people to the gulag. He's refusing to bring them back, and he's telling people, Americans, they're next, even if they're American.
AOC can still have a giant protest, and Bernie Sanders can be out there, and 200,000 people can show up, and it's okay still. So you can have some dissent. And this is my argument, is that we can...
Well, there's always some dissent in every dictatorship, but those people generally get dinged. I saw dissent at Marjorie Taylor Greene's rally the other day, or town hall. They got
Violence
tasered
there.
and someone beat the shit out of them. So, you know, like there's this, you could see the identification of the suppression of dissent.
Well, that's what I'm
thinking.
Yeah, okay, check. Yes, let's do it.
Check. So we got check for dictatorship.
Yeah.
Number 3, control of media.
Yes.
He's really going for it.
Yeah,
He's
he really
really
is.
trying hard. So check. Suspension of rights and liberties. Insurrection Act, anybody? I mean,
not there yet, but getting
how
there.
about the deportation of a couple 100,000 people? There you go. I mean, you can find it. It's pretty evident. I mean, it's the #1 story in the world right now. Mr. Abrego Garcia and 278 other innocent, legal American residents. They can't find them. They've been sent to a concentration camp. So suppression of rights and liberties. Check. No due process. Check. And the 5th one, which I find really interesting, which really kind of sends the message home, if you will. Cult of personality. Double check. We're not talking about a guy that's got the tools to run a country. We're not talking about someone who has an education that qualifies him to run the world's biggest economy. We're not talking about a gentleman who has been groomed to run anything other than an illegal money laundering operation on behalf of the Russians. And he's managed to tell people, convince people, that without him, they're going to die. And it's the wokes that are going to kill him. And he's managed to get enough people, 77.2 million of those people in the United States, to believe it based on his personality. Void of fact, void of receipts, void of anything other than what he tells them. That is cult of personality. Centralizing power, suppressing dissent, control of the media, suspension of rights and liberties, cult of personality. Check, 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 check. That is a dictatorship, a blooming dictatorship, one that really kind of looks more like an anocracy, which is where a dictatorship still gives you the impression that you're a democracy, but it ain't. America is not a free country anymore. It is being run by a dictator who wants to take on the Supreme Court, whose biggest impediment to success is the fucking Constitution, which he swore an oath to protect, and he's clearly taking a dump on that Constitution every single day of the week, even though he's hung it up on his office wall and put drapes around it and tells everybody how special and important it is. He hates the Constitution because he is a dictator, and the United States is falling into 2 feet first, a dictatorship as you and I speak.
I agree with you.
Period.
That we are on.
Stop.
Really well said. Really well said. And I agree with you, obviously, about where we're going, because I fear that this is an unstoppable slide. But my point really is that we're not quite at the very end. At the very end, there, we're getting there. We're getting to the point where it's going to feel like a total dictatorship. But this is why this weekend on the 16th, when people go out, the 19th, when people go out and protest again, it is so important that people do that, and people also challenge each of these things that he's doing right now, because each of these things is a test to see how far he can push us. So
without question, everything that he's doing now is a dry run to see how much you will put up with.
So don't put up with it. I mean, the whole thing is about don't put up with it. Push back on every front, on every one of these issues. When you see it, push back as hard as you can. Don't let anything slide. Yeah.
I got a question for you. So you said today, you were talking about Lisa Murkowski. She is the senator from Alaska, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
And she has enabled Trump for the last 2 presidencies that he's been president. She really has. She says the stuff like Susan Collins.
At times she hasn't.
But then
yes,
they run away. Yeah. They run away. And I watched her sit there in a really sharp blue sweater today. She looked great. And someone was like, why don't you stand up to Donald Trump? And she was like, because I'm afraid. This is every senator who's a Republican, every senator who's a Democrat, not named AOC or Bernie Sanders or Hakeem Jeffries or Cory Booker. Schumer's playing the game. He wrote a book. He wants the money. He's out. This is not tea time. This isn't what we thought it was. This is not a government of individuals. This is one man acting like a dictator, threatening everybody around him, with a guy who's got $500 billion in his bank account, threatening to primary people who don't agree with him. And We're sitting here talking to people and telling them, don't be afraid. Meanwhile, one of the most powerful women in America, Senator Murkowski, admitted in a town hall, she's petrified of the man. Like, do you know the kind of courage it's going to take for people to go out this weekend? Which I applaud everybody if you do, and I encourage you to do it. And if I was there with you in the United States, which I'm just not going to the United States, I'd lead busfuls of people. I'd get arrested. I'd get deported, probably to El Salvador. I'd probably be hanging out with guys in MS-13 making fucking license plates. But that's how courageous this weekend and these protests need to be looked at. You have sitting senators who are like, I'm scared to death of the man. And you've got normal people like Michelle Honorado, Steve McLeod, everybody that is in this chat, and God bless you, I love you all, that are like, we're going. We're going. This is what will save America. It's not a half-wit senator who just puts up with Donald Trump so she can keep her pension, so she can keep her fucking job. It's Bill from accounting who chooses to go out. It's Joanne who works at the bowling alley, who's tired of being threatened. It's every single individual American who doesn't want to see their human rights evaporate in front of themselves and be the next Abrego Garcia. That is the kind of courage that is going to change America and give America back to Americans. This isn't Trump land. Some buddy of mine got pulled over the other day. I just talked to him today. He goes across the border. He's a business guy. He has to. They pull him over. He's there for 4 hours and pull him into secondary inspection. And they start trying to go through his phone. And he's like, I'm not letting you go through my phone. 4 hours, right? He's a lawyer of all things.
What's on his phone that's so sensitive?
Nothing. It doesn't matter. It was the whole point. It was like, no, okay, you're not going through my phone. Yeah. And they're like, well, then we're going to arrest you. And you know what they told him?
What?
This is Trump's America now. Things have changed. These are border guards. These are people that are paid a pittance, that are so proud and happy that a dictator is in charge of that country. So Americans, regular Americans that are going out, they're not fighting against one guy. They're fighting against one guy and all of the acolytes that have been captured along the way by this ridiculous cult of personality who sits there and tells you he's a 9 when he's a 3. Sits there and tells you that he is something when he's not. Sits there and tells you America had a great week when their GDP sank by 2 points because he's a fucking economic disaster. So don't get those two things mixed up. And by those two things, I mean, what is America and who's running America? You have the most powerful person in the world that has enabled some of the worst people in the United States of America to feel tall when they're short, to feel powerful when they're not. And they're all in these positions of law enforcement and authority, like the Marjorie Taylor Greene thing, where she's running around mocking people, telling people they're not worth anything, your questions are stupid. And then you've got the police who are power-tripping dicks anyway, running around going, hey, at least I get some action tonight. Let's tase this guy because this is Trump's America. It takes incredible courage for anybody this weekend on the 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Is that
19th,
Saturday?
19th.
On the 19th? Sunday? Is it on
Saturday?
Saturday? Pardon me.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for being my calendar, Zev. I appreciate it.
I like being your calendar. I appreciate that. Thank you for noticing that.
Great job.
Look, I saw some video of border personnel breaking into someone's car by smashing their window open, or smashing their window because they were crossing the border. Yeah, with a pickaxe. Did you see that?
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of crazy stuff, and this, that's terrifying, and it's intimidation, and it's bullying, and it's all those things, and yet it's nothing compared to where we're going. I mean, and this is the thing I'm trying to highlight is that, Lisa Murkowski may be scared today, but should be terrified of everything in tomorrow or in 6 months from now or whenever it is that the full totalitarianism takes its shape. I want to point out something that Chris Murphy said today in the Financial Times, another senator. Once Trump has most law firms, universities, news organizations, and private companies under his thumb, it'll become almost impossible for any form of opposition to gain traction. His weaponized Department of Justice can arrest protesters, and there will be fewer lawyers to defend them. University research and academic discussion of ideas that run counter to the Trump ideology will be threatened. Private companies will not object as the rule of law collapses. This is not some innovative new strategy. It's the global playbook for democratically elected leaders who want to stay in power forever. And this is what he's doing with all these lawsuits. This is what he's doing by testing our limits and testing the court's limits, by sending people to El Salvador. And this is what he's doing about testing the universities and forcing them into submission. And we're beginning to see now, I think, a realization of that and people standing up. And, whether it's Harvard in their very courageous stand up towards him, or even this just before we got on the air, a federal appeals court rejected a government attempt to turn back the original ruling of the lower court judge about Abrego Garcia. So we just heard this just happened a few maybe an hour ago, that the appeal was rejected. And they said, we are not going to take this because there's a very fine judge who is attempting to implement the Supreme Court's recent decisions, and she should be allowed to do that. So we're seeing the kind of pushback that we are hoping to see on every level. And we need to keep seeing it, whether it's in the protests in the street or whether it's in these institutions finally waking up to the reality. The reality is this guy means to be a dictator, and we need to stop him at every single point that we can. Resist on every level.
And let me say this: the first time around, Trump 1.0, where he was 45, not 47, he had some economic successes because he had people around him like Gary Cohn and other people of note who understood the levers of government, understood how the economy worked, and they would push back when they had to, and they would hide things from him and all those other things. He's literally surrounded himself with broken assholes at this point, right? Who not only don't understand how markets work, which is his goal, he surrounded himself with so many broken assholes like Pete Hegseth and Tulsi Gabbard, and I think he hired like a 22-year-old to be in the Pentagon today to be part of the defense. Yeah. He's like a right-wing blogger, like 23-year-old right-wing incel. He learned from his first experience, and he's surrounding himself with the dumbest broken bag of hammers that he can find in every position, like Howard Lutnick, who was stroking him today saying, we're going to pass a law that makes it possible for Americans to catch all the fish. All the fish. We're going to have the best fish, the most fish. You're going to have great fish. And this was the dumbest shit I've heard since we're going to make shower heads great again. Remember that last week where we had a good mockery of the whole thing, and we read about his proclamation about shower heads and shower pressure, and he's going to make shower pressure great again. Remember that? Like, America is literally living through an idiocracy, if you've ever seen that movie with Luke Wilson and Maya Rudolph, where they freeze dry two people for a couple hundred years and they wake up in the dumbest time of all time, and a WWE guy or an MMA guy is the president of the United States, and they're watering their fucking crops with Gatorade. That's where you're going, America. It's an idiocracy. It is a dictatorship without question. But even worse than that, it's an idiocracy, which is a kakistocracy. When the dumbest people in the United States are running the United States of America, and everybody that's smarter than them, which is literally a fourth grader, can look around and go, we're hooped. It's over. We have the dumbest people running our country. Not only they're dumb, they're mean. That's a recipe for disaster for any country. Dumb, mean people know they can't win on merit, so they cut corners, hurt people, lie, cheat, steal, put out disinformation, work with other countries, because the only thing that really matters to them is hanging on to that sweet, sweet influence and power. That's the only thing that matters to them, because they know they can't get it according to merit. They can't.
No, of course not. Yeah,
that's why the conservative movement. Exactly. That's why the conservative movement in Canada, the United States, has embraced the dumbest groups. They've embraced the militia. They've embraced Donald Trump, the poorly educated, because the poorly educated don't use their brains and they don't fight back. They're just like, here's my agency. I got to go lay asphalt for 8 hours today, and I'm going to come back, and I just want to have 6 beers, a meatball, and spaghetti dinner, and then I want to pass out with my unit in my hand. Like, that's literally the person that Donald Trump has targeted, the person, MAGA, Maple MAGA has targeted. And in the United States, that works. In Canada, it does not. That's why you're seeing the rise of Mark Carney at the right time.
It almost worked.
It almost worked.
I don't believe in Canadian exceptionalism either. I think this can happen to any country.
Well,
in
I'm
the
not
world.
talking about exceptionalism. I'm talking about the dumbest people. Like I'm not an exceptional person. I'm not smart.
Exceptional.
I can figure a couple things out. Can't change my own oil. I probably could figure it out, but I can't do that. I'm bad at math. I can string a couple sentences together, but I have some self-awareness and the ability to reason that if X happens, then Y happens, then Z happens, and we're fucked. But I'm talking about a specific group of people who don't care if X, Y, or Z happens, as long as they can get pogey. Like, as long as they can get EI, as long as they can get drunk at the end of the week, buy a dime bag, and party on a Saturday and Sunday because they got to work on a Monday. Like, those are the people I'm talking about. I'm not. And listen, there's lots of dumb people. I'm dumb. Some of my friends are dumb, but I'm talking about the kind of people that are so dumb and so
I get it.
Painfully unaware of their own place in life that they're victims. Like we're literally living in a time where victims are running the United States of America, and they're attaching their self-interest to other victims, saying, "Hey, listen, we're going on the dummy train. Let's go because we're all victims." That's what's running the United States of America.
Absolutely.
Right now.
That's behind the whole retribution thing. That's exactly why he said to everyone, I will be your retribution. It's because, this appeals to victims. They'll get revenge over the so-called enemy, the boss who fired them or the girlfriend that never married him or whatever. This is how they find their solace, and they're able to identify with this president who's also not really a victim, but pretends to be a victim all the time.
He can't do anything on merit. That's why he has to be the world's biggest victim all the fucking time.
Yeah. The only thing is, he's turning America into the actual victim. I mean, we've got now, the manufacturing. Do you see the manufacturing indicators from the Philadelphia Fed today? How down they were, down to minus 26. That's the lowest manufacturing we've had in America since 2020 or something like that, since COVID. So, I mean, you've got, what he's been able to do in just a matter of months is tank our manufacturing sector to the point that we're almost in a pandemic, even though we're not in a pandemic, although we'll get to that a little later on. We might be in one. But, right now we are, our economy is feeling like we're in the middle of COVID. They're not making things anymore. They're not shipping things anymore. That means people are not getting paid. That means people are not going to be able to buy things. That means people are going to sink the economy further and further into recession. And, what does he say? Well, we're open to talks. We'll talk with any nation around the world. Did you see that with
China today too? He's like, hey, it's the ball's in your court, which is Trumpian for my God, please call me. Please call me Xi. Please, I'm dying over here.
So we haven't even seen, someone just said there that the tariff damage hasn't happened yet. Of course it hasn't hit anybody yet. Of course it hasn't. Right now, maybe there's some companies trying to balance the books, but they're done trying. I mean, you saw some people out yesterday saying, we can't balance the books at 115% tariffs. We can't do that. We can't actually make these widgets for that kind of tariff. So we're going to shut our shop. And that means people are going to land up being out of work. And that out of workness is going to be self-perpetuating. And we're going to be in a situation where on top of all that, you're going to have all these government layoffs. They're still laying off thousands and thousands of people. All of that is going to hit us over a longer stretch of time. Some of
mortgage rates are 7.5%.
Unbelievably high right now. Yeah. So
the dollar's down like 5 cents in the last month and a half. Right.
24% of Americans are now delaying any big purchases, cars or homes. That also has an impact on the economy. Of course, that
consumer confidence is in the toilet. The index is way down since the lowest it's been in 30 years. Yeah.
Donald Trump has created a colossal mess, and he is crashing the American economy, which many of us said he was going to do when he started doing this. And he seems to be right there doing it, and he seems to be okay with it. And that's the problem, is that he is fine with a crashing economy. He doesn't seem to be introducing any of the usual kind of fixes that you would get a president to do. I mean, he's criticizing Powell of the Fed and asking for him to quit because he hasn't lowered the interest rates. Well, of course he's not lowering the interest rates because he can't. He's caught in a terrible situation right now.
Well, because he understands the economy.
Yeah.
Like Jerome Powell, like Mark Carney, gets how this shit works. That moron in the White House has no idea how
Right,
this
but
should
he's
work.
also, they do sort of know they're crashing the economy. They see it every day in the numbers. They must see it. They're just not doing anything about it. And that's the frustrating part about it, is that they could be introducing all sorts of measures to stimulate the economy. They could be dropping this ridiculous tariff war that they're having. They could be introducing the different manufacturing or supporting different manufacturing sectors. They're not doing any of that. They're sitting back and they're watching the whole thing collapse, probably because they want crypto. Probably
Yeah.
is a reason.
Yeah.
But they're happy to see America suffer and suffer and suffer for the next few years while they try and pull that off. So, yet again, America is being tested on this very fundamental level. That number story was number 4 or 5, by the way. The court dismissing the
We went
Abrego
hard
Garcia
on
thing.
5. I like
Yeah,
that.
yeah. So,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
5 and 4. We'll put that together as 5 and 4 because the Abrego Garcia story was number 4, I guess. You can tell how we make this up as we go along. We try not to, but it just
You
sort of
make it up.
happens.
I'm ready. I'm ready all the time.
The number 3 stories. The Supreme Court is going to be hearing arguments next month over President Trump's effort to restrict birthright citizenship. Why does it matter? Well, of course, the move represents an escalation in the legal battle over the Trump administration's bid to open up the Constitution's 14th Amendment that basically confers citizenship to people born on U.S. soil. We spoke about this yesterday. I've got a green card. I'm a U.S. person. Therefore, I get the same rights, due process, everything, protection that a U.S. citizen gets. But according to this Trump administration, they are trying to remove this or change the Constitution by making it not something that you can get just by being sorry. So that you not become an automatic citizen when you're born in the United States.
Mhm.
So this is ridiculous, obviously, but I want to hear your take on it. This is a big case.
It's just more racism. It's just, this is a way, you want to look at why Donald Trump does what he does. Everything he does is a dog whistle to white America, to, the great Anglo-Saxons that he thinks established that country. So, I'm of the opinion, it's funny because, part of the immigration conversation, I completely understand. I understand that, if you're not in a country legally, you probably should be, as an immigrant to Canada, which I am. My family came over from Europe when I was 2. And my dad put the fear of God in me as a kid. He's like, hey, dude, listen, we're guests in this country, so act like one. Be grateful for the freedoms you have. Canada's the greatest country in the world. And then he told me, I was like 6. He's like, oh, by the way, if you commit a crime, you're going to get deported and you'll be there by yourself in England and we'll be in Canada. And
Wow,
that was my dad. That's how he did
He
stuff.
really parented you well there. So he knew at the age of 6 you were trouble, eh?
Yeah. So
Eight.
I grew up with this incredible appreciation for being allowed into a country. My parents did it right. I'm now a dual citizen of England and Canada. And
Mhm.
I'm really grateful for both of those passports. So I get it because, you had to go through, I took my citizenship test at the age of 35. My dad we didn't get naturalized or anything. My dad was kind of a knob about the whole thing when I was a kid. He's like, hey, listen, I'm going to go become a Canadian because I want to buy radio stations and you got to be Canadian. This is back in the day when you had to be Canadian to own a media company. You don't anymore. Stephen Harper, Donald Trump's friend, decided to change that back in 2012. So anyway, that's another story. But he went and did it on his own, and I went and took my citizenship exam and became a Canadian on live television here in Toronto on CP24. And they're like, hey, you can skip the line if you take your citizenship oath on which is a funny story. Citizenship oath on television, you can skip the line. We'll speed it up. You got to do it in 2 weeks, though. I'm like, sold. I'd love to do that. Yeah. So I show up to this thing and I got a shirt made that said I shaved my balls for this, that I wasn't allowed to wear, so I had to wear a coat over top of it because that's just who I am.
You're such a rebel. Your dad knew exactly how to
My dad,
school you.
I know. He's like, you're going to be a criminal. I can see it.
I can see that you're going to commit crimes.
You're going to be a total criminal. So anyway, I became a Canadian, and it was one of the proudest days of my life. And I'm looking around the room, and I'm seeing people from across the world decide they want to become a Canadian, crying. They can't believe they're here. Family from Burkina Faso. I talked to the guy there. I'm like, what's it mean to be a Canadian to you? He's like, it's everything. We get health care. We get jobs. We're qualified engineers where we come from. We get to do that here. It's just been a beautiful experience. Not a lot of, some people don't have the same experience. So I don't like it when people come into Canada illegally. Like I'm not a fan of that. I'm not a fan of people that come here for the milk and honey, as Donald Cherry said once and got fired for, and don't want to partake in society. So part of me understands, the rhetoric, but there's no nuance in that when it comes to Donald Trump's birthright citizenship. Like, I'm of the opinion, if you're born here, you stay here. And if your family was here when you were born here, you stay here too. Canada's got you, right? Because I love this country and I'm an immigrant to this country and I've experienced an incredible life in this country I never would have experienced from my country of origin. And in the United States, that's baked into the Constitution, much as it is for your Second Amendment right to own a fucking gun.
Mhm.
And Donald Trump would rather kill that. And listen, Canada is a multicultural country. There's no conversations about, getting rid of certain immigrants because they're of a certain color, or they've got gang tattoos, or, they're wearing a bull's hat backwards. It's like, it's all about due process. Are we treating you like a human being? Do you deserve to be here? Can you go through the process of being here? Great. I think we've taken in too many people over the past several years. I really do believe that. But I also believe that Canada's a big, fucking, beautiful, hardy place. It's got lots of space for people to actually live. And if you want to contribute and you come on in, you pay taxes, you contribute to social assistance, good, great, awesome. It's a business here in Canada. They don't look at it like that. The Trump regime does not look at it like that. They look at immigration like it's a trigger to go after people who don't look like the Trump regime. It's a trigger to go after people who are not white, who are not Christian, who might be Muslim, who might be from El Salvador, who might be from a country where people are tattooed and have got different hair. This is a cosmetic thing. If you look at what Donald Trump has done, he doesn't want any more babies being born in Canada that or in the United States that don't look like white Americans. That's why he's doing this. He's not doing this because he's like, hey, you know what? Let's get rid of people and anchor babies and all that other stuff. That's got nothing to do with it. Those are just excuses. He's like, when he says we're going to make America great again, what he's really saying is we're going to make America white again. We're going to make America Christian again. We're going to make America a God-fearing country again, and we're going to get rid of anybody who look, and this is the crazy part, who looks like they might not be up for the same vision of America that I am. And that's why a guy like Abrego Garcia is still in a concentration camp in El Salvador.
Yeah, you're totally right that but I actually don't think he actually has any beliefs. I mean, I think this is all about self-preservation and power. I think they figured out that if they marginalize brown people, if they marginalize people who are here illegally, if they put up the fight against anybody who looks different than the center core of their base, then they can ascend to power and stay in power for longer, and if not forever. And this is the whole play for them. It's not really about that they actually believe in anything, because Trump is like a soulless, sinning, sinful guy who's broken every single, of God's laws over and over again. He's not a believer in anything. He is just a believer in his own power and his own strength. And that's what he's trying to build up, his ego. So, this is why he's doing it. He's marginalizing people. He's making people feel superior over other people because of these things. And then, he's turning back one of the most important parts of American history, because the 14th Amendment came in after the Civil War for good reason, because people were being treated like slaves before. And basically what he's saying in this reversal of this 14th Amendment is we'll go back to that. We'll go back to subjugating humans. We'll go back to slavery. We'll go back to bringing people in and just using them as tools of trade. We'll do exactly that. We're going to reverse all these years of progress that we've had since the Second World War, since the Civil War, and we're going to go back to that cruel, vicious time where people like me, people like Donald Trump can be the master. Yeah. The masters over the rest of you, and all the rest of you have to do what we tell you. That's really what he's getting at here.
So the Abrego Garcia is a great example of that, right? Like, that guy was arrested with no due process. He was shipped off to El Salvador to a prison, wasn't released like most deportation victims or deportation suspects are just kind of, they're flown to an airport and you're on your own. Like, get out of our fucking country. He was released into the prison atmosphere of CCOT. He was released into custody as a criminal without any due process, any evidence that he was actually a criminal or a gang member or blah, 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 blah. Like none. And you think about all the things, all the trappings around Abrego Garcia, Mr. Abrego Garcia, or any one of the 278 innocents that were in America illegally, and consider the fact that those aren't even deportations. Like the United States deports, prior to the Trump admin, hundreds of thousands of human beings a year.
Yeah.
And the process is involved. But the process involves something called due process, where you have to prove that the person is legitimately a threat. You have to prove that the person did the stuff you said they did, because being deported is a big deal, especially if you're in a country legally.
Of course, yeah.
This gentleman and 278 other innocents were deported illegally. They were deported with the express purpose of getting rid of people. And if you listen to anything Pam Bondi says, or Donald Trump, or Marco Rubio, or Nosferatu, which is Stephen Miller, if you listen to anything they say, they reference how the man looks. Not what he did, but when we arrested him, he had gang tattoos. That's a lie. He has tattoos. Mom on one hand, dad on the other. He was arrested and he was wearing a Chicago Bulls jersey. He was arrested. He was wearing a backwards hat. But he was also arrested picking his autistic 4-year-old daughter up from daycare after a 12-hour shift where he went to work at like 5 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock in the morning. And he was also arrested as someone who's consistently paid his taxes, also arrested with no due process, no criminal charges, not even a social media post saying that I like MS-13. They seem like cool guys. Like nothing, no reference to it. This is a guy who's been in the country since he was, 16, legally, and had an order over his head that said, you need to stay here because, we know that you're a threat to be murdered because you said no to joining gangs in El Salvador, and this is why you're here. So put that. None of that mattered, and every citing of why they sent him out, because they have nothing to stand on, has to do with how he looks. Doesn't have to do with what he did. So, being able to kind of sit back and if you assume that those things which they tell you are true, well, we got rid of him because he looked like one. What is that? That's racism. That's slavery. That's human trafficking. That's like, we don't want people in this country who don't look like us. Look at Donald Trump's cabinet. They all look like fucking movie stars, even though they're idiots. Pete Hegseth looks great. He's an idiot. Tulsi Gabbard looks great. She's an idiot and compromised by Russia. Witkoff, anybody associated with Donald Trump in any position of authority looks like they're American. They're white, with the exception of Tulsi Gabbard, who can kind of pass as a really tanned white person. And she has connections with other countries, and she's the DNI, and she's completely compromised. So all of these people, like this is made for TV bullshit. But it's amazing that made for TV bullshit even factors into what Donald Trump does and how he treats human beings in the United States, which is why it's a dictatorship. And go back to that old cherry, is that this isn't somebody that gives a shit about due process or human beings or human rights. We all know that. Like, I mean, I remember like during the first administration, he asked John Kelly when, there were people at the border and there were people in Lincoln Square. He's like, can't we just shoot him in the legs?
Yeah.
Can't we just shoot him in the legs? And he's like, no, sir, we can't do that. And the reason why Donald Trump says that kind of stuff is the same reason why he doesn't give a shit about Abrego Garcia. He doesn't care about you. He cares about making America look like he wants it to look from his vaunted perspective of growing up in a family that the patriarch was involved in the KKK, Fred Trump. The patriarch was a racist who hated black people, who made black people pay more in rent. We go back to the ideology of identity politics. But that's exactly what Donald Trump is. He appeals to every racist or every person who looks at an Indian guy that pulls up to put gas in his car, it's got a turban, or he thinks you're invading my country. Now, that is a much bigger conversation. Right. And so the birthright citizenship stuff, going back to your original question, I know I've taken up a bunch of your time answering this, and I apologize.
Okay. Go for it.
But That's what the birthright citizenship stuff is. It's how the fuck do we get people to leave this country or be afraid of coming to this country who aren't white, who aren't Christian, who don't share our values. And that's what this whole thing's all about.
And we're on this slippery slope thing here as well, because clearly what's going to happen, this is the first part of this, right? They'll send a few people over to El Salvador, but they want to send so many more. They want to send citizens there. They want to send a whole lot of. I saw a Google Earth thing. I'm going to post it later on narrative.org of what this prison really looks like from above. It is just inhumane. It is just one giant or several giant closed tunnels, I would call them, or not even tunnels, just like sealed stainless steel, or it's not stainless steel, probably aluminium kind of housing that just go on. It looks like it goes on for like half a mile.
Yeah, they look like massive Quonsets. Yeah, huge.
And they've got basically just slots for air at the top, but no windows at all. Just these long tubes of hell must be in there. And then some of these buildings have like weird. Clearly there's blood being spilt on outside of some of these buildings.
Oh, the courtyard of blood. You've seen that aerial photo.
Yeah, it's this is horrific stuff, and American citizens are being sent there. But this is part of the escalation, and this is part of what they're going to do. They're going to, their anger and their legislation around trans people. We've seen this before. We saw it in Nazi Germany. We saw how they started this campaign against Jews, and we saw they started a campaign against gays, and then they built this up, and they started. And at some point, it was okay to exterminate them because people were either numb or too scared or just not wanting to see it, so they went ahead and did it because they could.
Yeah,
and that's where we are. So that's the slide that we're facing, and that's again why he is testing us time and time again with all the stuff that he's doing right now. We have to stand up to it. I have got this is story number 2. We've got a choice here: toothpaste or We Are Not Alone. Which do you prefer?
I prefer We Are Not Alone, and we can save toothpaste for Monday if there's nothing else that happened on the weekend, because I find the whole lead and toothpaste boring. I really do.
Okay.
Like,
well, there's lead in toothpaste, folks. There's people aren't checking out the food and the tooth, whatever. Anyhow, a giant planet 124 light years away from Earth has yielded the strongest evidence yet that extraterrestrial life may be thriving beyond our solar system, astronomers claim. Observations by the James Webb Space Telescope of a planet called K2-18b appear to reveal the chemical fingerprints of 2 compounds that on Earth are only known to be produced by life. Detection of the chemicals dimethyl sulfide and dimethyl disulfide would not amount to proof of alien biological activity, but could bring the answer to the question of whether we are alone in the universe much closer. This is the strongest evidence to date for biological activity beyond the solar system, said this astrophysicist.
124 light years away from Earth?
Yes, 124 light years away. You get there back tomorrow, probably, if you left now.
I liken this to the whole Stephen Hawking conversation that I like to have with people, where they're like, he's a genius. I'm like, how do you know? Like, I mean, you're like, he just says shit, and you're like, you're not as smart as him, or you don't have his degree, so how do you know?
Yeah.
Do you think we're alone? Let me just ask you that question. In the universe?
I mean, I think that if you follow the arguments that everyone has, is that the building blocks are there everywhere, and it's the same building blocks that we have on Earth. They exist in other places. If we exist here, yeah, sure, we probably have there's life elsewhere. We're probably not alone.
I don't disagree that there is life out there.
Yeah,
I don't know what that life looks like. Is it a microbiome considered an alien? Is it a bug on a sure, I get that, but there are like. This conversation I had with a buddy of mine, he's like, they walk among us. I'm like, dude, 1.8 billion pictures get uploaded to the internet. Oh, so, excuse me, it's 100.8 billion, not 100.8 billion pictures get uploaded to the internet on a daily basis. Did you know that? 100.
No, I didn't. I didn't know that.
I have yet to see any clear-cut picture of any of these things living among us, number one. Like yet to see it. And I was listening to Neil Tyson deGrasse talk about it. I'm like, yeah, the world's maybe best astrophysicist who can turn things into layman's terms, making it. And he said the same thing. He's like, we should have some pictures. You know, like you get 100 billion pictures that get uploaded to the internet a day. Like if you're a 14-year-old girl, you're uploading 100 a day. But you get like
Right.
all these pictures. There's got to be something. And like the Navy video was like this grainy tic tac and radar.
People
And there's
believe
like,
that they're legitimately something there. I mean,
I know there might be. I
they-
don't know. See, I'm agnostic when it comes to everything I can't explain or don't have proof for.
yeah.
Like that God exists. That's hilarious. Like, sure, there's never been any proof of any of that. God to me is just as existent as lizard people living among us that are able to change shapes. Because there's never any pictures, there's never any proof, and don't do the whole. Well, you got to have faith because faith
What do
literally
you
in
need?
the.
You don't need pictures, right? I mean, there's other ways
Of
of proving
course, I need
things.
pictures, or I need to touch it. I need to see it. I got to have a picture with it.
What if
I'm
we've
like,
been
yeah, I gotta
around for a
see it.
long time and are integrated among us because they've already been here for a long time?
Oh,
And it's
please.
possible. It's possible.
Oh,
It's possible. There's
please.
lizard blood in some people. Some people have lizard blood.
Well, you got your lizard brain. I mean, yeah, for sure.
Yes.
You've got that. Everybody's got a lizard brain, but you also
So how
have the
come some
ability to
people have
reason.
lizard blood? How come that's the case?
Nobody has
So
lizard blood. Where are you
I
reading
don't
lizard
know.
blood
I don't know.
reports? You're making it up. You're making it up. Anyway, nice that there might be life on another planet. Who knows what it is? But to your point, everybody don't get too excited that they're like a guy named Steve is living on K24, 124 million light years away, and he can't wait to meet you. Just letting you know.
Okay, we have time for one more story. This is number one story of the day. I can find it here.
Do you know what it is ahead of time? Or
I do sort of know ahead of, but you know what? I can't see it here now because I've done this terrible thing to my computer. Here, well, it's all about Mike Lindell. Remember Mike Lindell?
oh,
The
let's
My
end on a
Pillows guy.
positive note. Yeah, I
I
love
thought it'd be a
this.
fun way. This is kind of positive, and everyone who doesn't like to not like Mike Lindell. Everyone likes to not like Mike Lindell, but the poor guy is out of money. Not surprisingly,
Poor
according
guy.
to ABC News, My Pillow CEO Mike Lindell tearfully told a federal judge he is in ruins and unable to pay the $56,369 in court-ordered sanctions to voting software company Smartmatic, claiming that he has no money left after numerous legal battles stemming from his 2022 election fraud claims. During a virtual hearing on Wednesday, U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C., Lindell appeared visibly emotional as he pleaded his case before Judge Carl Nichols. The MyPillow CEO broke down in tears while describing his financial collapse, claiming he had borrowed everything possible and that nobody will lend me any more money,
Including Donald Trump. Let's just put that out there.
Yeah, including it. So that's the good news of the day.
Oh,
So
great news.
We should
Great
end
news.
on something light and fluffy and positive. So
I don't know whether to clap or go into the bathroom and rub one out listening to that news.
you could do any of those things. You could go cry on My Pillow.
I don't own
Get
one.
that?
I don't own one.
You don't know My Pillow? I can have My Pillow. Sure.
Let me just say this about Mike Lindell.
Yeah.
Mike Lindell is suffering egregiously, and it is all his fucking fault. That gentleman is insane. I feel zero empathy for him in his position. At one point, he was worth $500 million selling pillows out of Minnesota. Like $500 million. Had he just shut his mouth, had he just not, bought into the craziness and decided to protect his wealth, he'd probably be worth $1 billion today. Right now, he's worth negative $329 million because he's insane. And he's one of those crazy born-again Christians who believes in things that he can't see, feel, hear, or touch. And he gets told that he's really important and part of the resistance. And he's like, I'm going to go all in for my Lord.
Mm-hmm.
Congratulations, Mike. You went in all in for your Lord. You went in all in for Donald Trump. And you sat in front of a judge today and you cried your eyes out. And it makes me happy. Makes me happy that he's lost. It makes 320 probably million Americans happy that man is destitute and back in his, financial, crack days where he couldn't put $2 together just to get some crack. That's where he's at. That guy became something, created something, and then decided to pick the wrong team. And I know Donald Trump is in power, but let this be a lesson to everybody, including you and your friends or your MAGA friends, that this kind of shit is not sustainable. Everybody involved with Donald Trump will end up being like Mike Lindell, Pete Hegseth, Tulsi Gabbard, anybody who supported him, save the super billionaires like Bezos and Zuckerberg, who, by the way, these guys have lost trillions over the past several years. And Rick Wilson from the Lincoln Project, who, by the way, is number one on the new bestseller list. We're number two. Hi, Rick. Said it best
Rick.
in a book. He's like, everything that man touches dies. Everything. The economy, Mike Lindell, Pete Hegseth. I mean, sure, they're in the sun now, but every one of those people should have been tuned into what happened to Mike Lindell today and gone, I need to run as fast as I can away from this gentleman because he's going to make me give it all up and he's going to make me do dumb shit and I'm going to lose everything. You will lose everything. Mark my words. As worried as America is today, all of the people in that man's orbit are going to suffer enormous losses that you'll be so grateful you didn't suffer because you weren't a part of this mess. There's gonna be a time when maple maggots in Canada are gonna scrub their Facebook accounts of ever having supported this individual because everything he touches dies, including the United States of America.
How come you're not number one? Because I don't get this. You've been number two for a while, and number one's
like
keep
on
coming
Substack
up.
global bestsellers.
Yeah. And I don't know what's the difference. Like, why is Rick there now? Like, Rick's a nice guy. Hi, Rick.
Great guy.
Why? How come How come you leapfrogged over Dean? I don't get it. It's not fair. We want justice.
Yeah.
We want Dean to be at number one.
Only one way to do it. Only one way to do it.
More subscribers. Everyone should go out and check out deanblundell.substack.com.
Just go ahead and subscribe. That's all you got to do.
Tell everybody, steal your friends' phones. Just whatever you do, just subscribe. Put their email addresses down. Yeah. Just subscribe. We need as many subscribers as possible.
Don't care. Just go subscribe. And then we need number one.
Because Dean's got to be number one. It's got to be number one.
Well, I'm seeing some people on Twitter from here, actually. Kayla Sweeting. Hi, Kayla. Yeah, Kathy. Hi, Kathy. Nice to see you. Twyla. Hi, Twyla. Nice to see you, too. Really nice that you followed us over here. Don't care where I am, just care. And I'm very grateful that I got to do this podcast with you ahead of the Easter long weekend. And I want to encourage every Canadian and American that loves democracy. That is why I'm here. That is it. I'm not here for me. I'm not here for anything other than to protect my beautiful country, which is Canada, and to help all those beautiful people in the United States of America understand what's at stake, but also to let them know that on the daily that we're here for them too. Canada does not hold the average American responsible for their dotard president. But more importantly, I'm really grateful that I get to watch the weekend. I'm happy it's going to be sunny today. That's what I can control. And what I can't control is what happens in the United States of America this weekend. So all my love to you, America. You go protest. You go do your best for yourselves, for your neighbors, for others, for democracy. It's why we're all here, to live free, to live happy, to support each other. So God love you, America. God love you, Canada. Have a wonderful Easter long weekend. Thanks for joining us, making the FiveStack an actual thing. And thank you for your support on Substack. I've got a deal on mine. You can go and get your annual subscription for the price, or lifetime subscription for the price of an annual. You can see it on my thing. Same thing with Zev. He's got 30% off, both of us till the end of the month, because we want you to join us. We don't want to make it prohibitive. And listen, if you can't afford a Substack membership, whether it be a monthly, whether it be a yearly, whether it be a lifetime, you let me know, because I don't want to prevent anybody from seeing or enjoying any of this content, and I'm more than happy to review it and have a look at what your situation is, and give you a free membership. So, God bless you all. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I've got a couple of things I got to say though. There's a Canadian debate is happening tonight. Everyone should watch out the leaders debate. And I'll be back at 8 o'clock tonight with a special report with Olga Lautman. We're going to talk about the surveillance state and how it's here. Thanks for being here on
I'll watch that.
FiveStack. Yeah, watch
Thanks,
it.
Guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.